Welcome all to another episode of Tech Leaders Unplugged. We're going to get unplugged today with Anand Safi. He is the uh, Director of Engineering, Data Platforms, and AI Solutions at Zinnia, an insurance platform. And we'll get to hear all about the platform and how Anand's focused on culture and influenced culture in the various companies and businesses that he's worked with. Thanks, Anand, for joining us today, sharing some of your expertise around positive cultures and work environments for the employees that we try to shape and retain. So introduce yourself a little bit and a little bit about Zinnia, and then we'll get into the topic.
Thank you so much, Wade, for just the warm welcome. I would love to start by saying this is really an exciting topic, kind of given the times. And before we get into it, a little bit about myself. So I currently, as Wade pointed out, lead the data engineering pillar for Zinnia. I've been with this organization for a little kind of close to 6 months, but in my career overall, I've had a lot of kind of experience in software engineering, mobile engineering, and data engineering over the past decade. So I had my bachelor's and master's in computer science, and from there continued to work in the industry across a variety of different org sizes, at different kind of, I would say, uh, industries, and focused on first as an individual contributor trying to just get into the technical abilities and just make sure that I'm able to deliver technical value, slowly move towards the management kind of road, and have been in this management slash leadership kind of track for the past 7 years or so in various roles, team sizes, leading divisions, and today, just leading a team of data engineering. Actually, so we're a group of 10. We are growing quite a bit and almost kind of doubling in size, say, over the next 12 to 18 months. A little bit about Zinnia as the current organization that I'm working for. It's in the insurance domain. So it's an insurance tech company building end-to-end solutions for the insurance ecosystem. As we like to call ourselves, actually, we are trying to be the change maker in this insurance ecosystem by being the guardrails of the industry. So we are not trying to pinpoint a particular kind of, say, problem space, or just trying to roll out a particular solution. We are rethinking kind of the end-to-end flow of the insurance life cycle for carriers, consumers, and kind of our partners as well, because things have changed so much kind of over the last decade, and insurance tech is one industry which is really kind of sitting on the edge of, I would say, breakthrough in terms of the potential it has with all this generative AI and data driven solutions. The amount of data that flows through insurance systems, the amount of, I would say, opportunity it presents for the carriers and the customers to benefit from something that is more kind of insightful, beneficial for their own needs, and a little bit more customized and tailored towards the needs of the modern consumer, is really important. So that's kind of what Zinnia is focused on, rethinking multiple kind of stages in the insurance life cycle, right from lead generation to finally kind of just a claim processing, and even beyond in terms of renewals, and just say more, I would say, future applications. There's a custom solution or rethink happening at each stage. So I'll pause there, Wade, and happy to go in deep on any of those aspects.
Well, yeah, thanks for that background and setting the stage for our topic today. Really, so let's talk a little bit about team cultures, especially maybe some of the aspects of this whole remote working that's come our way in the last few years. That obviously has impacted how we gather and can share in cultural experiences within the company, and then a collaboration, obviously using tools like we have right here, and some of the impacts you've seen with the organization you've been. So let's go ahead and jump right into the topic.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for again introducing the topic. And When we were going kind of back and forth on what to talk about, this naturally drifted just my interest in terms of it's a very real situation that not only leaders but every, I would say, individual in whatever capacity in the organization runs into, actually, right? It's just there is so much going on in terms of the organizations of today, or just the wider, I would say, uh, uh, events in the world, that it's difficult to stay on track and just kind of rationalize on how do you make kind of sustainable progress, or how do you feel successful or content in whatever you're trying to accomplish, actually. So this phrase of topic, right, team cultures and collaborations amidst chaos, I would like to break this down into, say, three sections, right? Starting right at the end on chaos, actually, moving on to kind of culture, and then we'll talk a little bit about communication and collaboration techniques, and then put a leadership spin at the end. So I want to take the liberty and with kind of chaos as the term, and just want to normalize it, saying chaos is not bad when we look at it kind of from a particular lens. Just bear with me for a minute there, right? It's very natural for us to gravitate towards this as a term that is just causing unrest, or just kind of causes a little bit of distress in terms of, okay, seems like we are in turmoil, seems like everything is upside down. How do you get out of the situation? But when I look kind of just at any situation, whether in an org or kind of just outside, change is just constant if it is kind of geared towards the right goals and strategy, right? So when I say it's chaotic, it's just because we are challenging the norms and the structures of, say, yesterday, or just kind of up until now, to further just shape the future where we are headed, actually, in terms of a team, organization, or whatever the goal you're trying to achieve. So for me, chaos is just not about kind of challenges. It's just about trying to tame the unpredictability, actually, that is going to come. And also, it's just because the rules of yesterday are going to be difficult to kind of apply in today's context as well, actually, a little bit. So just in terms of your introduction, right, just in this area of remote work, just imagine how remote work caused chaos to an entire, I would say, ecosystem, right? It was just something that really a few companies attempted, or was a luxury for a few people, just became a norm overnight, actually, in some sense, and that was chaotic. But we did, I think, overall well. There are companies, there are reports, there are studies which say maybe that is a good choice for organizations, actually. So I think out of that chaotic episode, in some sense, at least from a work culture and work dynamic standpoint, we do now have at least a couple of solid, say, ways of working strategies for teams and organizations that can thrive on remote cultures. There is certainly an option, while there are others who are adopting kind of going back to a little bit more return to office hybrid approach, for example. So that's kind of how I view chaos at a kind of very high level, in terms of I'm trying to downplay chaos a little bit in terms of challenging and kind of unpredictability, and trying to drive towards something that we can predict and kind of control a little bit more in terms of outcome perspective, actually. Trying to uh, go to the next phase, actually, in terms of the importance of culture. When I said all the kind of things related to chaos in order to kind of work in our favor in some sense, I think culture is that catalyst that would make it happen, actually, right? So that's just, in my opinion, right, that is uh, really, really critical that we have that nailed down as a team, right? And there are multiple levels in terms of culture, right? And many organizations approach team culture, in my opinion, from a very monolith standpoint, that there's an org mission statement, and then there are three or four values that are drafted, or like these are things that we live by, and it ends there. We then don't hear about kind of them often being talked about, being celebrated, or there's a disconnect fundamentally between these values that are documented at kind of the highest level of leadership or at the org level, and the teams that are kind of pulling their weight day to day, actually. So what I like to see is we as leaders and we as kind of even individuals and in any organization need to really make that kind of effort to connect these values to our day to day, actually, right? Celebrate those values. You see there are, depending on the mode of communication, there's either teams doing kind of shout outs, awards, like celebratory notes, actually, or just showcasing their colleagues and peers. It's more beyond the individual in terms of, okay, what did this individual do to kind of demonstrate this particular, say, value, actually. So I think culture overall, where I see, is a lot of is a lot of trustworthiness and recognition at multiple levels, actually, in order to definitely, I would say, close the loop on the work that everyone puts in my personal opinion, I think recognition and reward in some sense is definitely necessary, so that the individuals can kind of connect to the wider goals of the organization, right? They can definitely understand that the work they're doing is meaningful, has a real impact on what we're trying to achieve. And in such a way, actually, I think using culture as a compass can really kind of guide decisions, actions, interactions, right? Trying to make sure everyone has a voice or everyone's ideas is heard, trying to make sure that we're not talking or interrupting someone, or like while they're trying to kind of synthesize their thoughts and present their idea. There's very small kind of things, right, at from a meeting that you're sitting in to kind of all hands presentation that you're doing, that showcases the value and the culture of an organization, right? It's built on trust, and I think that is going to be a factor when we talk about the chaotic environment, when there's uncertainty, there's kind of lack of confidence. The amount of transparency and open communication lines that you can set up, actually, and the shared goals, that's going to kind of make that morale boost, or that's going to kind of get people that extra kind of needed confidence in testing times. And everything is going well, everyone feels like just okay, settled, they feel they're making strides. But culture is a gift, actually, like the right culture is a gift when things often don't go well, which is more common just because of the strategic shifts either in the workforce or just in the wider, say, ecosystem on how companies are either looking at profitability or trying to kind of make a space in the industry or trying to just further their mission. So that's my blurb on, I would say, how to use kind of culture as a vehicle for navigating chaos a little bit, actually. In order to break down kind of how do you have a little bit more kind of tangible approach to defining a team culture, that's where I think for me the power of collaboration comes into play, actually, right? So culture cannot be done in vacuum, right? Each team cannot have, like, okay, they can certainly have their own ways of working, but I think the shared values and the beliefs that we kind of just make progress overall, that's in my opinion culture. So in order to kind of make sure that while we respect each team's choices and approach individually, how do we still collaborate between these kind of differences and in a unified manner kind of progress against our goals? And that's culture. So for me, that is, I would say, a couple of things to cover there. First is I already said, like, communication is key, right? So trying to make sure that we are communicating effectively is really really critical. And again, a very common pitfall when we say communicating, it means people just are referring to speaking or delivering, but I'm actually wanting to touch upon the listening part, actually. So trying to listen the voice of our, say, customer, trying to listen the voice of the people on the front lines who are trying to kind of just deliver on those set roadmaps, actually trying to listen on what the team is telling you from, say, a burnout, or just kind of improving your process, or trying to listen on what's working well and not trying to change everything in there, like that kind of space that you create, and kind of value opinions is going to be really really important. This is not where a top down, I would say, one set, let's not question kind of approach might thrive, in my personal opinion. That's kind of my take here. Once you have that idea set, or once you start having that, I would say, feedback cycle in place, the next phase is to empower those individuals, actually, whether it's your team leadership, whether these are kind of people on the front lines, or whether it's you as a leader, actually trying to, I would say, encourage folks to act upon those ideas and trying to create that space that that they can experiment and kind of say either adopt or dismiss any sort of idea will help you iterate quickly, actually. So that's kind of important in terms of when you talk about strong collaboration practices. It's just trying to create enough tangible milestones to uh, touch upon something, whether an idea or an outcome, quickly in a reasonable time frame, and then have some, I would say, guardrails or success criteria in place. Did this work? Okay, what's the next phase? Did this not? Let's not beat the horse kind of again and again. Let's move on to the next thing, rather than trying to make it work for kind of a long period of time. So that's kind of the piece around, once you have that communication, I would say, framework in place, trying to empower and encourage individuals to take on kind of actions is important. And then last is around kind of the collaboration piece, is a little bit around just there are a gazillion collaboration tools out there. So I would say there's definitely kind of an exhaustive list, but I think you can make tools work toward advantage, right? Where you see there are opportunities to streamline some certain kind of, say, processes or just ways to function, use those to your advantage, right? Try to look at kind of async communication lines rather than having everyone show up for a 30-minute call, which is kind of redundant in some place, actually, in some sense. So like Slack, there's just some AI tools as well. There's integrations in terms of alerting and observability framework, depending on the projects you're working on. So you can have less manual upkeep and have kind of your people focusing on more strategic things, actually. So that's kind of on how I look at fostering collaboration in that regards. And trying to wrap up a little bit in terms of this kind of going back to chaos, actually, how do you demonstrate and kind of have leadership focus in these testing times? I think it is a good combination of just a few different things, actually. First is, as a leader, especially when times are chaotic, you should be able to own your decisions in some sense, actually, in terms of navigating decisions, right? Decision paralysis or trying to do too much at once, even, is a little bit kind of, I would say, not ideal. So trying to, if you need to make a tough call, or if you need to kind of just look at another outcome, it's about being transparent about the risks, actually, and rallying to the team, right, on what we're set out to achieve. You might, I'm not saying just share everything at all, because there's definitely things that are half baked and things change, but be transparent on kind of what we are trying to achieve and why we might need to make certain choices, actually. At the same time, look out for your teams, supporting their kind of mental well-being. It's very subjective on how any sort of, say, chaotic uh, uh, event, right, rather constructive or even a positive restructuring, in your opinion, might kind of be interpreted by the teams or at the individual level, actually. So trying to have those regular check-ins, trying to kind of be available, actually, either yourself or your kind of leadership team, definitely makes everyone feel valued and understood, actually. So leading by example on those couple of, I would say, items is really important. And I think in overall is just building that kind of resilience and emotional integrity, in terms of these are cycles, right? They will definitely come and go like roller coasters, actually. Each I would say event can appear as kind of just gigantic versus the past. But I think if you have that kind of a set framework and a general culture based approach on how we kind of just uh, attack these situations and kind of embrace continuous learning, there's a lot of potential to still thrive as organizations, as teams, and be wildly successful, right? And this is not all, I would say, nice to hear, difficult to implement. There are organizations who have withstood the test of time, many different kind of conditions, economic downturns, all sorts of things, and they have kind of stood the test of time and really done well actually. So I think there is definitely some merit. I've certainly applied some of these things in my personal kind of roles and situations when we had to either pivot a big strategy, ended up signing a big customer and a strategic shift, or losing a big customer and losing that contract dollar, or say reduction in forces, reorgs, trying to be in hyper growth mode and kind of just double my team size in 3 months. How do we onboard new people? All those. So chaos can or unrest is just in a good lens or in a constructive lens depending on how you see it, but having some of these set practices and a kind of well thought out approach can certainly help. So I'll pause there. I think I've tried to synthesize a few of my thoughts across all the three key areas, and I'll hand it back to you, Wade.
Great, great. So, quick summary as I'm hearing, I think a lot of folks, where you use chaos, I think others will call it turbulence, right? So think of a plane. We're flying through it. You can't go around it. You can try to get above it. You can try to get below it. Sometimes you just got to go through it, right? And so the culture and some of the policies and process and procedures and things that the company tries to shape how we are going to respond to not only work items and changes that come in, which will be processed, but really kind of drive how, things are going to get intense. Things are going to get tough, especially as you're trying to wrap up a project and you're on crunch time and stuff. How do we engage? How do we behave with each other? I mean, some folks come from very different family experiences or cultural experiences where, anger and anxiety can, be elevated and that's acceptable. Other cultures, that's not acceptable. You control those emotional states and stuff. So as many have said, is that if you don't shape your culture, the shape culture will definitely be shaped one way or another. You cannot, any place that people come together to have a task, it's part of our humanity to shape an agreed set of norms and how we're going to interact to make things efficient. So and then of course communication, you have to make that clear, otherwise people will just come in with assumptions, right? So those have to be sometimes explicitly shared, the expectations and the norms of those, the cult to drive and create that culture. So that's kind of my summary. Did I get that right?
You absolutely nailed it in terms of just uh, as you said, right? There are going to be various situations, and the culture can also be subjective, right? We have a culture of fear, we have a culture of collaboration and just valuing each other. So thank you for kind of expanding on the culture piece, right? Depending on people's backgrounds and kind of varying degrees of reception and comfort with situations. So that is important. And I think one of my leaders recently just put it wonderfully in terms of chaos is it's like a sports car, right? You cannot kind of chase it or say get in front of it. It's just how you learn to drive it actually and control it. So it's a little bit kind of that analogy in that did kind of resonate with me.
Great. So, got a quick question. So, as a director, you have data, you have platforms, and now, of course, everybody's talking about AI and machine learning at the very executive levels, all the way down. How have you leveraged culture? Because obviously, this is bringing in a lot of fear. This AI, is it going to replace my job? Is it going to do that? How is maybe culture and the continuous learning aspect to say, hey, new things are going to, I mean, in tech, our tech changes every 2 or 3 years for us. So I think unlike maybe something like construction or something, that has maybe 5 to 10 years of distance between major changes. But it seems like we're always chasing to try to keep up in IT. So tell me a little bit about how you've done that, especially within the AI and machine learning piece, how you've taken culture and continuous learning and helped to kind of calm using the culture to calm things, and people can get back on track and still leverage these great technologies without worrying about their job.
Yeah, I think that use case fits perfectly on the chaos and the culture piece. chaos as in it's a very unpredictable I would say field or just problem space actually. There is just a lot of open-ended solutioning or discussions, and it's very difficult to apply it into I would say a really organizational context and do right by it actually. So this is where kind of culture comes into play in regards to how do we have a culture of looking at something from an open mind and just experimenting with it enough and kind of discovery phase that whether or not this can be a value add to us, right? And I say value add, which is a very critical word in terms of we are not looking to kind of say have use AI and ML and just downplay just entire kind of roles or responsibilities or just kind of change the world actually, right? We are looking at there are efficiency gaps and there are ways that we know kind of as leaders that we can fine tune some of these systems processes and really generate more value while keeping the workforce more engaged on something that they enjoy doing, right? Nobody, for example, likes writing long kind of notes for about a call or note or like say doing a lot of manual upkeep around say generating data insights or producing a report. So where can we use AI driven solutions or just like say Gen AI stuff to put that data in and have the AI automate some of these processes so that we can reduce kind of the time to deliver and have the I would say uh, our employees focused on something that they enjoy doing and create that culture of learning and further growth on some other skill set versus just that same repetitive task again and again.
Great. So, as we're wrapping up, I always like to kind of bring this back to, kind of some of your personal experiences in life and such. So, from your, experience, it looks like you started working, went to college, first round in India, shifted into roles at big companies in the United States, New York, eBay, all these kind of big experiences. And then now you've shifted up into Canada. So you've got three different really cultural aspects to your experience at work, as well as company size. So startups versus, big companies. Tell me how those experiences have shaped your perspectives on this culture and how it is important to kind of build, because many people come into these organizations all with different experiences, both geography and work experience. Tell me how you've kind of taken that experience and helped to shape how you like to perpetuate a positive culture.
Yeah, I think those have been really fundamental to what I would say encompass kind of my leadership style or how I approach situations. Those have been the building blocks, and the reason being is that they were certainly very diverse and kind of on either extremes in some cases actually. So that's why I was able to see both sides of the coin in some regard, right? When there were organizations which were really huge, right? Like 20, 30,000 plus workforce, where if I needed to make a change, there were kind of a lot of kind of process and then bureaucracy I had to go by in order to get that approval, repeat myself over and over. And it was just a culture of, I'm not saying that it was kind of just in a negative lens. It was just a culture of being overly cautious because the amount of, I would say, spread is such huge given the employee size or the amount of things that are in play. It's very easy for someone to slip through kind of just a little issue in the system or things go unnoticed and that could cause haywalk actually. So that's why it's just trying to have that culture of just being a little bit more diligent than usual and trying to approach situations with the right approvals and right kind of thought process in place. While there were experiences or kind of when I was working in startups in New York City, actually, it was definitely still being cautious, but as long as you felt that you had reasonable control over the idea and then you knew how to undo something in kind of a fair bit amount of time if you attempted something, you were given kind of that autonomy and to run with it actually, right? As long as you demonstrated some of that mastery. So I think that was also different culture that you could be nimble and kind of iterate fast versus just trying to jump through the proper kind of hoops and processes to launch something in 6 months versus 6 hours actually in some cases.
Great, great. So, well, I think we've kind of completed the time that we have. So before we, wrap up and um, close out the show, I wanted to introduce next week's show. We have Shauna. So next Wednesday, we have Shauna Del Hirio, Chief Information and Technology Officer at Sportsman Warehouse. And we'll talk next week with her about the retail space and technology over there. And so join us next week, same time, and look for the posts on LinkedIn and on the website Tech Leaders Unplugged for any additional information about next week. So thank you very much for joining us today and sharing a little bit about your experience and shaping culture to help manage these turbulent times that we're still in, I think. And I think more are to come. But either way, trying to get work done is always has different, when we're doing complex things in IT, we always have unknown experiences that are going to come our way, and how we use culture to respect each other, shape the efficiencies and the motivation and all those kind of things are critical. And just because we don't sit next to each other doesn't mean we can't use that as a glue really to bring people together and execute. So thanks again for your time, and appreciate you for sharing the experiences with our community here.
Thank you, Wade. The pleasure is all mine. Really enjoyed chatting with you.
All right. Have a good day.
Thanks.